Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about nodes in the color grading page of DaVinci Resolve. There's all different types, they can be really confusing. I'm going to break it down and say what type of nodes you should use and when you should use them. I'm also going to cover the order that you should use them in, and we're going to look at serial nodes and parallel nodes. Professional colorists often use complicated node trees, but what does it all do? We've got one on screen here. I'm going to break it down. We're going to start right from the beginning on what a node does and how it works. What we need to do is think of this box here as a factory floor, and your image is going to move through the factory. It's going to start off basic and then we're going to add bits to it as we go along. Here's a basic node. On the top left we've got our input RGB channels, and the other green one is our output RGB. And then our blue one is our alpha channel. This is for our transparency in, and this is for our alpha out. So this basically sends your transparent alpha out to the next node. Our factory starts here. Here's where all the materials come in. And that connects to the RGB node. And here is the other end of the factory where our finished product comes out. And we can layer it as we go. So you always see that the first node is always connected like this. As a basic rule, you have one node does one job only. You could put loads of effects on one node, but then it's an absolute nightmare when you come back to it later and try and work out where something is, where you did it. So select your node, so it goes red, right click, node label. I'll call the first one exposure. Always when you're creating nodes, label them so you know what each one is. What I aim to do with this first node, think of it like the chassis of your car. You're in the factory, you've got the chassis, you can now start bolting parts onto it like wheels, tyres, engines. So I'd go into exposure. I generally prefer the HDR because it's more accurate, and I could adjust the exposure till I'm happy with how it looks. Moving it to the left is going to darken it, and move it to the right will brighten it. Play around with this until you're happy with how bright it looks. So I'm quite happy there, nothing's blown out, and it stands out pretty well. I'm going to create a next node by pressing Alt and S. You can also right click here, add a node and add serial. That's another way to do it. But Alt S is the shortcut. The next one we're going to do is label it, node label white balance. Make sure it's selected, and then we can go down to our temperature down here. So if you want to make it look colder, we can move this to the left and it'll start looking more blue. And moving it to the right will make it more orange. If you want to reset a node, you can click on it, reset node grade if you're not happy, and it put it back to where it is. I'm just going to make this look a bit more blue just so we can see a subtle difference. So what we've done, I'm going to disable our nodes. I can highlight them and press Control or Command D. So that's where we started. Press Command D, that's our exposure. Select the white balance, Command D, and we can see there we've added the different features. So the beauty of doing it separate nodes is you can turn one off to see how it looks. So without the white balance, it looks like this, and with our white balance, it looks more blue. Press Alt S, I'm going to create another node. Give it a label, we're going to call this one contrast. Go down to our SDR wheels. Set your pivot point to 0.335. This will keep your exposure balanced. Imagine a seesaw, you've got the bar going across, you've got the pivot point. You want the pivot point right in the middle. So if I turn the darkness or the brightness up, it'll keep everything balanced. I'll show you right now. If I click on our curves, bring that up, see how it's brightening the image, but it isn't changing the exposure, then I can bring the contrast down. So you can make it look pretty, yeah, I'm liking how that's looking. So what you want to try and do is get your image looking as good as you can within the first three nodes. We've done our exposure, white balance and contrast. And then that's where I start doing like fine tuning. It might be like, let's make the sea more blue. Let's make the sky a different color. Those are like what we're going to do next. As for the node order, you can see we started on the left with our exposure. Then we've adjusted our white balance. Then we've adjusted the contrast. So we're moving from this side of the factory to that side of the factory as we go. What I'm going to do is create a new serial node by pressing Alt and S. Now that's selected, I'm going to press Alt and P a few times. And that's going to do is that's going to create our parallel nodes. So you see here, that's a serial node, so it's only doing one thing, and then it's splitting it. And then we've got our parallel nodes out. Parallel nodes let you apply separate adjustments independently and then combine them into one output. Let me show you. So we've got our serial nodes, and it's looking good until this point. And basically, these aren't doing anything at the moment. Select them, Command D, not doing anything. But what about if we wanted to, say, adjust the C here? Our client says, right, can you make the C a bit bluer? I'm going to select this, give it a node label, call it C. And then I'm going to go to my colour picker. And then I'm going to take a couple of samples of that colour there in the C. And we can see down here, it's basically saying, right, here's the colour range. If I move our offset, I'm going to make this quite strong. You see now that it's really changing that colour there. So you could kind of just fine tune it and you're happy. So it's now a darker blue. But it's also affected our sky as well. So what I need to do with this is, because it's affected our sky, I'll turn this off so you can see how much it's affected the sky, because some of the colours are similar. What I do is, in this case, I'd go and draw a mask around it, click on the mask tool, click on the pen tool, and then what I do is just start drawing around this area here. Just going to do it really quickly, just an example. It's not perfect, but you'll get the idea. Can you see how it's only applied it to that section? It hasn't affected the rest of the image. Then we're going to adjust our sky. Node label, call this sky. Do similar as we did before. Go to our mask. I'm going to do a rectangle mask just for ease of use. We can put this up here, just roughly in line with our sky for the time being. You could obviously spend a bit more time on this to get it perfect. So what it's saying is only affect this area, and then I'm going to make our sky like some crazy colour. So you could have a pink or purple sky. So if I turn off the parallel nodes, so that's our normal image. So we started in a good exposure, good colours, and then I can turn them on one by one, press Command D, that's made our C darker, and that's adjusted our sky. So you could go through and make all kinds of tweaks like that, and that's the beauty of having parallel nodes. It's taking the input from here, making little adjustments, and then outputting it. That's why I'd recommend using the parallel nodes. They are fantastic for things like that. I'll show you a really good example I've created earlier. Here's an example of a professional node tree that I tend to use on each project. I'm going to disable everything, highlight the whole lot, Command D to disable it. Let's have a look at what we've got. Here's our log footage. And what I've done is I started off with two nodes, colour space transform in and colour space transform out. So I'll put one on the left because that's where we're starting and that's where we're finishing. So we enable the first one. So that's told it by going into effects that was shot in DJI D gamut from my drone, and it's in Rec 709 gamma. And then we're going to put it into DaVinci Y gamut, which gives us the biggest colour space in the middle here to grade with. And then the second node that I created was our CST output for Rec 709. So I press Command D to re-enable it. You can see there, it looks pretty good straight out of the box. And then we've got our exposure. And then we've got our white balance. So I turned it down quite a bit with the white balance. And then we've got our contrast, just to kind of enhance the image a bit. Have a look at this yellow bush here. I tweaked it a bit to make it a little bit darker. And you see how this grass is quite light here and patchy. I want to make it more green. So that's how you can manipulate an image using a professional node tree. And you've got a couple of spare parallel nodes if you need to use them. And hey, that's it. That's the basics of nodes. There are layer nodes, but they're a bit more complicated. And to be honest, I hardly ever use them. So I'm not actually going to cover the layer nodes part. But if you found this useful, leave a comment below, hit that like button and smash that subscribe. And if you didn't like it, well, hit that dislike twice. And thanks for watching.